We go. Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. On a Monday, that must mean it's time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing just dandy. And how are you?
Uh, another cold, man. Another
Yeah,
cold.
man. That's a bad luck streak for you.
I mean, and it's all coming from airplanes. I mean, I got home on Thursday, and by Friday morning, like I told Katie, I'm like, I think I'm coming down with a cold. And she's like, well,
That
maybe it's
sucks.
allergies, because she's an optimist. And I'm like, I hope so. And then I woke up yesterday and I'm like, I know this is a
And
cold. Yeah, this is
hope was dashed.
hope
Hope was
was
pummeled.
hope was completely uh destroyed. So I mean, it doesn't
Oh.
seem too bad. I took the day off, and honestly, I spent almost the entire day sleeping. I think I slept for like, I don't know, like 20 hours. No, that not that much.
Hopefully,
Not that much, but I
hope
slept for most of the day.
that's good. At least hopefully that helps remedy the impact of the cold and
Yeah.
you bounce back as the week goes on.
Yeah. One can hope. One can
Yeah.
hope.
Well,
Oh, I guess I should turn my feed on. We're just looking at your beautiful face instead of my ugly mug as
oh
well.
man, if I have the beautiful face, then all hope is lost for the world. Okay. But yeah, anybody who happens to be coming across our stream, Eric and I, we hang out here and
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
talk about our cartoon. I animate, and Eric and I talk about video games, and Eric will wax poetic about whatever the latest console
Too
has caught
much.
his eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's yeah, someone needs to come in and like shut me up or something, because I have too many things to say about too many things.
all right, well, I'll go into share screen mode and
Yeah,
we'll
for
talk
sure.
about today's topics of sorts. Right. Okay, I think we're good. Tonight, and we're working on the scene where everybody's going yay because Calamity has decided to stay in Dry
Mm-hmm.
Gulp Gorge after sampling those vittles. Um, yeah, so I'll be working on different poses for Sally. Again, I've been kind of already been on Sally mode for the past few weeks, but I got to do a pose for Mayor and for Mitchell. So tonight, those are the sketches here, and I might, if I get time, I'll do one for Calamity here too, and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of sample from our library and go from there. But
All right.
yeah,
Sounds good.
that's the evil plan for tonight.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I'm so okay. So the world has been lit on fire by Resident Evil Requiem. Uh
Mm-hmm.
Sold 5 million copies in 5 days, which is somewhat insane. Um
Wow. Can you give me wait? Can you give me context compared to like other Resident Evil games,
yeah,
right?
so there's I saw the stats on this. It took over 2 years for Resident Evil 7 to sell 5 million copies.
Wow, and it did it in like,
5
oh my
days.
gosh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't 2 years. It was like a year and a half. But still, a
Okay,
year and a
still,
half versus 5 days is a little bit unbelievable. Now, I mean, there was just something. There was some vibe about Requiem that people just had an inkling that it was good, and then when the reviews came in, then it was just, every reviewer was like, "Yeah, this is amazing." It just sort of like that initial vibe sort of became cemented in people's consciousness, and everybody bought it, and um came out on the Switch 2. And by all accounts, like every review that I've looked at, one of the overarching themes of the review is like, I didn't even know you could do this on the Switch 2. Like the port is so competent in terms of, the Switch 2 is a much more limited piece of hardware than a PC or even a
hmm
PS5 is. Um, and yet, like, people are looking at side by side comparisons, and aside from a few frame drops, a few like ray tracing issues, and like the hair on characters isn't as
hmm
good, they're like, it's basically 100% the same experience as any other platform. And everybody's sort of like, what kind of dark magic did Capcom sort of conjure from the deepest bowels of hell to be able to accomplish this on this platform. And it's sort of the same um like reaction people had when Cyberpunk 2077 came out on the Switch too. Like, how is this
Hmm.
possible?
Yeah.
Anyway, so on the Switch 2, they had a deal where you could, because they also released 7 and 8 along with 9 on the Switch 2. It's like a multi game, simul game sequel, whatever. All three games released on the same name.
Hmm.
And Capcom was doing this deal where you could buy all three games for $90.
So to buy them for $90, was this only the digital? Was this only digital,
Only
or do
digital,
they have that for physical?
but they do. It was the same price for the physical, but good luck finding a copy because Capcom. I don't know. Capcom, just like Nintendo, their games are great, but they make these decisions sometimes that are like, why are you doing this? They did
Okay.
do a physical, well, physical. It was game key cards. It wasn't like the bits were on the card. It was just a digital, like you insert the key card into the game and it has to download the game
Hmm.
anyway.
Hmm.
Um anyway, um but still, like, they did do a physical version of it, but it was exclusive to GameStop. They did an extremely limited print run, sold out immediately, probably almost entirely to scalpers, right? And
Yeah,
then of
of
course you get on
course.
eBay and it's like, it's like $400 on eBay, and I'm like, no, I'm not paying that. I actually don't know what it is, but I know it's at an inflated
Yeah, yeah,
price. I don't know the exact price. I'm being hyperbolic, but
sure.
so yeah, technically there was a physical copy, but it's like I don't really buy physical copies of games anymore, if I'm being honest. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna buy it immediately because Monster Hunter Stories 3 comes out on Friday, right? I don't need a million games to play right now. I mean, I never really need a million games to play, but I always have them
Sure,
somehow. But
sure.
ultimately, um uh uh it was just too tasty a deal. I mean, no matter how you look at it, it was a good deal, right? Like, you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it as you pay full price for Resident Evil Requiem because it's a new game, and then you
Hmm.
get Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 with all of the post-release content, all of the DLC, all of the extra, gigads and gewgaws that they added over the course of the years, right, for $10 each. Or if you want to like amateurize the cost, you get all three of these games, a brand new game for $30, so a 50%
Yeah.
discount, plus two
Hmm.
older games, but with a huge amount of content at least a $25 to $30 discount than if you had bought them at retail, right?
Hmm.
It was too good a deal to pass up, and the sale ends at the end of the month. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Whatever. I'm gonna do this, and I'll get around to them anyway. So I picked it up and I played through Resident Evil 7, and boy howdy, man, I need to go back and replay Resident Evil games. I don't know. Like, 7 was a return to form. That's the thing, right? Like,
Hmm.
4 and 5 and 6 were much more action games than they were like what Resident Evil was originally, right? And I think that that's what one of the things that put me off of 4 so much. And we've spoken at length about this. The other thing is that I didn't understand that the way you needed to play through 4 was pick a weapon that you like and only upgrade that weapon. Because when I played through 4 years and years and years on the GameCube, like that's when
Yeah.
I originally played 4. That's how long ago it was. I was like, hey, I got a new toy. I'm going to start upgrading this, right? And
Yeah.
then I
Sure.
got to a point of the game where none of my weapons were really high enough power to take on the enemies that I was facing, and was continually like running up against walls where I couldn't get past sections and was having to
Yeah.
replay.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I give up on this game. And that I found out, I think maybe you told me, it was like, oh, well, you should have just picked a weapon that you liked and upgraded that single weapon. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I guess I should have done that,
Yeah. It's interesting because again, sometimes we'll disagree on some stuff, and this is one where I think we do kind of we do kind of have different paths here. I thought Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube was a masterpiece of a game, like one of the top at the time, one of the top 10 games of all time type of category, right? But
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it's interesting. yeah, the way you approached it, it would have been challenging if every time you got a new flavor of the minute gun, you'd be spending so much money, and you'd be spending so much money into it that everything's just very average.
Mm-hmm.
So I could totally see why your experience went the way it did. But on the flip side, so this is something I kind of learned later on about Resident Evil 4. Uh, this might be more myth, but I'd like to confirm it. But apparently, the developers, when they made Resident Evil 4, they were in the backdrop as you play the game and as you died. They were paying attention to that. They were actually putting a difficulty scaler running in the background to help you go through the game eventually. Like if you kept dying by death by 1,000 cuts, they'd actually take the health down of a certain enemy, or there wouldn't be as many enemies. You'd see less of the shield guys in that room and stuff like that. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah.
I don't remember myself, and I died a gazillion times. So
Yeah, I remember the show, guys.
yeah, but I prided myself on beating the game. But now I thought about it, as like, man, I died a lot, so maybe I played on easy mode by the time I got to the end of the game.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, but it's a whole other.
Yeah.
It's just an aside. But what's also funny is, so we're talking about Resident Evil, and like only a couple weeks ago in another stream, I just played Resident Evil 4 remake, and I thought that was a great game
Yeah,
too.
that's what I've heard.
With the DLC and everything. So anyway, so now here we are again. Now you have the baton, and you're playing Resident Evil games, and you're playing the ones that I don't like, which is 7. I think they're the FPS ones. Where I'm not into those.
I will say that
really
with
funny.
8, yeah, the good news for you because I mean, part of it is famously you get motion sickness, which kind of makes it hard for you, which sucks, right? There's so many good games that are kind of like difficult for you to play as a result of it, and I feel really bad for you. They did at least with Resident Evil 8 and then following with Requiem, you can choose to play in third person if you want to. So it's not
That's
locked.
Awesome.
Yeah, so like at least with 8 it was a post-launch edition where they went in and added 3D models for Ethan, and you can play the whole game in third person mode. And then Resident Evil Requiem, just from the start, you can swap back and forth between first person and third person whenever you want to. So at least with those two games, you should be able to avoid some of the motion sickness issues, which I think,
That's cool.
Now they didn't do it for 7, but I kind of get it with 7 because that game, until almost the very end, is extremely claustrophobic, right? Because almost the entire game is taking place in a single, like, small Louisiana plantation mansion, right? And then it kind of, as all Resident Evil games do, it kind of goes off the rails by the end of the game. And you're like, what just happened?
Yeah. It's just, it becomes.
But that's that's part of Resident Evil. That's part of what's great about Resident Evil, right? I mean, like,
it's part of the charm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least with 8 and 9, you might be able to, like, because you can switch into third person for those and play those in third person, you might be able to avoid some of that motion sickness issues. But yeah, I mean, 7 though I really dug, not least of which because it was to me a return to the good old days, right? Where it wasn't just zombie killing, Zombie Fest 101, right? There was a lot more just sort of the lurking terror of it, the specter of evil constantly
dread,
lurking around. The dread around every corner, right? And I love the environment too. I love that. I mean, I'd say about 2/3 of the game is set in that mansion. Maybe 60%, but over half the game is set in that mansion, right? And
so one thing I want to ask you about here. So you're saying it's a return to form, because to me, when you're saying that, I'm thinking about Resident Evil 1, which is and 2 had this too, and I guess 1 through 3 did. But the forced corridors, the forced perspectives, right? Well, and now you're in first person, right? So now it's still a forced. Yeah, you're still seeing it. You're still getting the claustrophobic element, but only in first person mode now, right? Yes, that's what you're kind of talking about.
Yeah, it's not forced perspectives anymore, but it is because they do set it in first person. There is that sort of like, I don't know what's around the next corner, because when it's third person, you can independently rotate a camera and see things that your character wouldn't see. But in first person, you don't have that luxury. So in a weird way, it does kind of create that same kind of vibe that the first three games did. Well, even Resident Evil Code Veronica, um,
Hmm.
where because the camera was fixed, there was a what's around the next corner kind of, you know, dread. Um, but no, beyond that though, it was the game is. I mean, like the story DLC isn't like there's a story DLC in Resident Evil 7 where you literally play a Louisiana redneck who kills zombies by punching them with his fists. Like it just
What?
the DLC goes completely off the rails, right?
Okay.
And
Uh-huh.
and it's fun in its own way, but um at least with the main game, it's much more slower paced. You have very limited inventory, so there's a lot more going back into that, like making value
Hmm.
judgments on what you add to your
Yeah.
inventory, making a mental note of where things were in the environment so you could come back and get them later, right? Like there's fewer enemies, but they're way stronger than they used to be,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know? Or you know, they're way stronger than like they were in 4, for instance, 5 and 6,
Hmm.
where you know, like in Resident Evil 7, the first encounter you have in the game involves the first encounter with enemies that you can beat involves like 3 monsters. 3, that's it. And it's like
Hmm.
incredibly harrowing trying to survive that encounter. The first
Hmm.
encounter in Resident Evil 4 is like what, 60, 70, 80, you know, like it's a bloodbath in Resident Evil 4.
I mean,
Um
they sort of slow walk it. You go through the, when you first started on Resident Evil 4, only because I have in recency
yeah.
bias in my memory. You start with a cabin, you kill one, and then there's
Yeah.
two, and then like you're saying, it is a really what everybody refers to
Once
is
that
the
church
church
bell
bell.
rings in
Yes,
4, everything
that is the
changes.
iconic moment of
Yeah.
RE4 for sure,
Mhm.
especially early game.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Um but yeah, so it's just, you know, it's a very different vibe. Um yeah, so it is a throwback to the original games where a single enemy. I mean, I will never forget the first time I played Resident Evil 2. And you wake up as Leon.
Uh huh.
I mean, you could choose Claire, but I chose Leon first for whatever reason. And you take a step forward, you see a monster almost immediately. And I remember the first time I played it, I was trying to play it like an action game,
Hmm.
right? And so I
Sure.
unloaded all of my ammunition into this zombie, killed the zombie, felt
Yeah.
powerful, went to the next screen and died because I was already out of
Yeah.
ammo, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and you know, it was a real game changer for me in that respect of like, this is a
Uh
new
huh.
way to approach how you have to play the game. And 7
Yeah.
felt like a real return to form for me, and so it
Hmm.
really gripped me because of that.
Yeah. I
um
remember,
yeah.
I mean, we're talking about moments and stuff like that. I remember playing RE1, and that first time, and again, another iconic moment, but seeing your first zombie, it's like that pale Nosferatu almost
Oh
style
yeah, and
kind
you
of
like the
zombie in a
head
way.
turns up, that
And then,
iconic cutscene
yeah,
where the head turns
wow. And that
around.
time,
Yeah.
I think it was that a PS1 game. I
It's a
can't remember if it was
PlayStation 1
PS1.
game. Yeah, yeah.
Man, like it really, that was like a game changer of a game for
So
that
many.
console for games in general. I felt, where.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so many amazing like bad localization memes. Like, you know, my favorite is
Sure.
of course, "Here, Jill, take this, seeing as you're the master of unlocking." And he like that Barry gives Jill a lockpick, you know, and it's amazing. And it's amazing too
Yes.
because these are American voice actors reading these lines, and you have to know that they're like going,
Yeah.
this doesn't actually make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But back in the 90s, Capcom was notorious for having Japanese developers who didn't speak English fluently do all of the voice direction for the dialogue for their games,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
one of the reasons why so much of the VO in early Capcom games was so bad, because you had non-native speakers directing native speakers.
Yeah, but then, it's funny, and like it is funny. You can look back at it, but there's a certain kind of charm to it now too, where,
Yeah.
oh yeah, now everything's too slick and professional for the most part.
Oh
There's
yeah. I
still some
mean,
awkward things here and there.
it's so bad. It's so bad in a way that I I really
Yeah.
love like the opening live. The original cutscenes in the first Resident Evil were all live action, all the main ones, and they actually
Oh, I
hired
forgot about
real
that.
actors with very bad costumes.
Oh man.
And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's almost like you wanted to think of it as a B movie, but
Mm-hmm.
then it was so cool because you didn't really see that before. It just elevated above B movie status.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at it now and laugh a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what, it'll always be like a top tier kind of game because of just
Mm-hmm.
historically, where it was placed in history, video game wise. It's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think one of the reasons, there's two reasons why I stopped playing the games with 4, and one of them was I was young before my years, or I was very immature as a kid, and I mean a kid. I was in my 20s when Resident Evil 4 came out, so
I
kid
was gonna
is
say like I'm not that much older than you. I think you were.
mentally I was definitely a child.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah,
But it was sort of like you changed it for from what I know and I'm comfortable with, therefore you are wrong, right?
yeah, I get that.
That was
I get
part of
that.
it. And then there was like the whole, you really do need to pick a weapon and just stick with it the whole game, which I stand by. I think was a bad design choice. um
Sure, sure.
that doesn't, but it also isn't something that's exclusive to Resident Evil 4. Like, I loved Dead Space, which is basically just Resident Evil 4 with a different story and different graphics. But the
Although to your point though, Dead Space you can beat that game with just
Mhm.
your
Yeah,
with
with
just
just the
your whatever
original
that the
plasma cutter. But
yeah, the plasma cutter.
that's what
Yeah.
I realized. The lesson that I learned from RE4 is like, don't change weapons. Pick one that you like and stick with it. And with Dead Space, the plasma cutter was great right out of the gate, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I like this. I'm just going to use this single weapon. And then by the end of the game, you're a badass who's capable of taking on all the proper monsters because you've upgraded everything appropriately.
And if we applied your gameplay ideas from RE4 to Dead Space, I think you would have struggled with that game
I
too
would have.
because
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
pulse rifle was useless,
Yep.
mid game through. You could put all your money into it and
And it
then
was just
why, kind of a
totally,
thing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so Resident Evil 4 kind of was a sacrifice on the altar of me being able to enjoy these
Yeah.
types of games. And so I
Yeah.
really need to go back and revisit 4 now that I have a better understanding of what the creators, how the creators really wanted you to explore the game.
So
And I've
here's a
heard the
question. Now
remake
that
is
you're in,
phenomenal.
yeah, now here, yeah, that's my question. Now that you're in Resident Evil mode, would you play the remake or would you actually go back to the OG and play that?
I have thought about that as well. I kind of want to do both a little bit.
Yeah,
RE4 is literally on every platform.
yeah,
They probably ported it to 3DS. I don't even remember.
yeah. It
But
probably is on there.
I know
Yeah.
it's on the Switch, so if I really wanted to, I could just download it on the Switch and play the
Hmm.
original. My understanding is they did a fair amount of changes. Like, they
Yeah.
redesigned entire characters, they
Hmm.
rewrote entire plot lines.
Yeah, I
Um,
think some of the voice acting. I think the voice acting has been updated and changed too.
yeah, yeah.
Even some,
So,
some of the dialogue.
I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
long my this Resident Evil itch is gonna
Hmm.
continue, especially with
Yeah.
Monster Hunter Stories 3 coming out on Friday.
Yeah.
Um, Um, but I'm definitely gonna finish off 7, and yeah, I mean, I might just, I don't know, maybe I'll just dust off my GameCube and just play the
Hmm.
original.
That's true. I mean, you already have
I
it.
have
It's already
it.
sitting around.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit of side nerd talk, but I've heard, I think I saw clips where people have been able to take their Game Cubes and get a plug to plug into high dev
Yeah,
slots on your
I have
TV and
one.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
seen
I
that?
have
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I have one that it just upconverts. It's like a little box that's powered. You plug it in, you plug the component cables in, and then it
Huh.
converts it automatically to HDMI. And
So how's it look?
it's ugly as sin. It's just like, it's a little black box with ugly cables, one of which has to plug into a power supply, and the other one has to, is an HDMI cable. But
Oh,
it works.
yeah.
It's
I
the
don't. I
job
don't
done.
care. I don't care about the aesthetics of the cable. I care about the picture. Like, does it
Oh,
look
oh,
upscaled? And yeah.
oh. It's fine. I mean,
Oh, okay.
you're in software upscaling a
Yeah,
480p visual to
yeah,
1080p. Um,
yeah.
and you know, graphics that weren't intended to be displayed at that resolution without any fine tuning, so it's blurry.
Hmm.
It's, you know, it is exactly what you would expect it to be, but it is playable. um so, you know, that's I mean, that in and of itself is like worthwhile, right? Because like
Hmm.
my, you know, everything before the Wii without that adapter, I can't put on my modern televisions.
Hmm.
I have to have an adapter to plug those things in, right?
Hmm.
So,
I
you
mean,
know,
playing. Do you still have Wavebirds and stuff? Because I
oh
mean,
yeah, I
playing with
still
the
have all of
Wavebird
those.
on,
Yeah, yeah, I have a Wavebird and
yeah,
everything. Yeah,
it's a great controller.
it
So
was.
I don't know.
Yeah, Wavebird was phenomenal. Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, you kind of have the recipe to play a pretty fun experience, but getting on the Switch, you already have your Pro controllers, whatever. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I also
it's
have
just
the GameCube re-release controller that they did.
oh yeah.
So if I
So
wanted that sort of traditional feel, I could. But you know, it's anyway, I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to get to it because I will probably
mhm.
burn out on Resident Evil again well before I get to the point where I go back and replay 4. And honestly, if I go
Yeah.
back, I'll play the remake rather than the original. Um
Hmm.
and so yeah, there's like, you know, they did the 4, 2 and 3 remakes plus 7, 8 and 9. So there's like 6 games that I haven't played in the many years since I stopped playing those games. So we'll see, you know.
Yeah, I mean, well, and then right now, again, you've got the 7, 8, and 9. So, yeah,
Yeah.
those are easily. I'm assuming they're around 20 to 30 hours each of those games.
Uh, to
So,
100% them, yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah, they're not
yeah.
super long. I mean, I got through the main game. There's a bug actually that they never fixed where the internal game clock doesn't ever stop counting unless you physically completely exit the game. And so when I would put my Switch into sleep and just leave it in sleep mode,
Uh huh.
it was still, the game timer was still counting. And so the internal clock on my first save file thinks that I beat it in 47 hours. And in reality, I beat the whole single player campaign on easy in about 10 hours. And then I spent
Hmm.
like, you know, a few hours here and there on the other DLC stuff. Um, and they're not like wildly large commitments of time.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and you know, that's the other thing I do appreciate. Starting with 7, they started. Well, maybe it was in 5 or 6. I don't know because I didn't play them. But in 7, at least, you can like change the difficulty level. You can choose what difficulty level to play on.
Okay.
Or maybe you could do it in earlier games. I don't remember anymore. Honestly, it's been so long. But what really matters is that I am of the age now where I don't care what the difficulty is. So I'm just going to put
Hmm.
it down at easy so I can enjoy the game and see all the content for this game that I purchased. Um,
Yeah.
and even on easy, I still died like 10 or 15 times in Resident Evil 7. So it
Hmm.
wasn't like I was just breezing through it.
Yeah. I'm kind of getting that. It's taking me longer to arrive at that same conclusion you have. I think it's smart how you're approaching it by putting it on easy, because now, I mean, I want to see the creative output that's been put into the games. But if I keep setting it to hard or whatever the hardest setting is, my gamer ego wants me to make it beat the game on hard to get those stupid achievements.
Mm-hmm.
But now it feels like, in the early aughts and the teens, it felt more important to have those trophy achievements to
Mm-hmm.
brag with your friends. But
Mm-hmm.
now I don't, like, for example, you and I don't talk to you about achievements ever. I don't think we've had a conversation about them at all, you
No.
know?
No.
Um, so now at this point, it's like I think you have the right approach, is what I'm saying. You arrived at the smarter conclusion than I have done, because my gamer ego won't allow me to. I'm still playing Stellar Blade on normal,
Mm.
and there's the masochistic part of me that enjoys trying to beat the bosses on normal difficulty, how the developers intended. But
Mm-hmm.
now developers intend to make everything hard on purpose
Mm-hmm.
because of Dark Souls. As much as I love
Mm-hmm.
that game,
Mm-hmm.
so now it's like a kind of a now you're kind of weighing your time versus, yeah, do you want difficulty or not? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I
and
think your approach is the most healthy.
I mean, I spent all this money for a game. Would I
Hmm.
rather see more of the stuff the game has to offer, or continue beating my head against a wall in the
Hmm.
same room over and over and over again for an hour, you know? And I've decided, you know what? I'd rather see what happens at the end of this game rather than proving that I'm capable or something. I don't know. I don't even
Yeah,
know what I was trying to prove in my younger days.
yeah. Although, what about the whole? Does your synapses do your synapses go off? Go, yeah, I beat this boss. Does that ever happen where you're like super psyched? Because I
No.
get that. I get that adrenaline rush for doing it. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
well, not anymore. Maybe when I was a kid, but now if
Mm,
I like a game enough that I'm going to get over a difficulty hump like that, once it's done, I go, "Oh, finally." Like it doesn't feel good.
yeah,
It feels like
yeah.
finally I can go back to what the actual game is that I'm actually enjoying.
Hmm.
Um and so yeah, no,
Makes a lot of
there's no
sense.
sense of triumph, there's no sense of accomplishment when I get over these hard sections. It's more
Hmm.
thank God this is finally over so I can move on to something else. Um
Yeah, but you don't ever get the exhilaration of wow, what a great boss fight, that kind of thing. It
I
hasn't
mean,
hasn't.
okay, I mean generally yes, in specific no. I mean, the whole point of a game like Monster Hunter is to
Yeah,
best these
yeah, the
monsters.
exhilaration.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so in that instance when that is the whole game and there is nothing else, um that's exciting when you've accomplished that because that in and of itself is the purpose of the game. But in Resident Evil 7, like there's a couple of parts where it's an invincible boss that you can't beat, and you know what your objective is to go through and just um find the tool that you need to escape the room before he kills you, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
in those sections, those are my least favorite sections because what I ended up doing was going through it, not even trying to beat it, trying to figure out what the game wanted me to do, letting myself die, restarting at the beginning of the checkpoint now that I knew what to do, and then just power through it until it was over, right? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't play the game the way the game wanted me to play it because it's like I knew that I could just start over. So, like those moments, it actually deflated the scare factor, this horror factor of it, right?
Played like a true game tester.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Resident Evil Scare 7 was at its scariest when I didn't die after an encounter, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, but in these hard boss sections, it wasn't scary or threatening because they checkpointed right before it. Now this was something that they did in 4, and it's one of the reasons I didn't like in 4 is that they didn't usually checkpoint right in front of bosses, and so if you died at a boss there was like a half hour of game that you had to play through again,
Hmm.
which I hated. Now 7 they don't do that, they checkpoint right before bosses, but that also comes with its own problems.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's all just a really long-winded way of saying, like, no, I don't enjoy those types of moments unless that is
Hmm.
what the entirety of the game is. Like, what Resident Evil 7 to me was the horror of exploring this house and what happened to these people and who
Hmm.
is the protagonist and why is he here, and exploring that world and playing with all the toys that the game gives you to play with and killing cool monsters and all of that stuff. Like that's what I was there for Resident Evil 7 for. And so having to replay a boss sequence more than about 2 times would have turned me off because it's like I've seen this once. There's
Yeah.
nothing else I'm getting out of this. Now you're just asking me to do a skill check before I can see
Hmm.
the other cool content that you've got. And so it's
Yeah.
like, what is the lowest bar of the skill check that I can set myself to? And it's setting the difficulty on evil, going through, memorizing the stuff that I need to do, and then as soon as I know exactly what I need to do, restart so I have all my ammo back, I have all my healing items back, and I can just power through it to move
Yeah.
on to the parts of the game that I actually do like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, that's where 7 was at its weakest, was the boss battles. Um,
Okay.
for that very reason, right? Because if you don't know what you're doing, you waste a lot of ammo, you waste a lot of healing items, and then when you do figure it out and you beat the boss, then you've used all your ammos and your healing items, and you're at a deficit, which I guess maybe the game wants you to do, assuming you do beat it on your first try, because it's an artificial
Mm-hmm.
way to limit your resources. But it wasn't what I wanted to do, and so there was there was one boss in 7 where I finally beat it, and I'm like, cool, I can move beyond it. But now that I know how to beat it, I actually did it again just
Hmm.
so I could conserve, because I realized after the fact that shooting it with my ammo didn't do anything. It was invulnerable. I had to kill it in another way. And so if I
Mm-hmm.
continued playing it after I beat it the first time, then I would have lost all of this ammo that I didn't need to lose. And so I
Mm-hmm.
said, screw it. Now that I know how to do it, this takes 5 minutes. And so I actually restarted it and did the boss battle again and conserved all of my ammo because I didn't need to use it. Right. It's those types of finicky things that always drive me crazy. And it only happened a few times in RE7, and so I was able to like just whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, it's a moment when I have to repeat a moment multiple times, it starts feeling like it's preventing me from doing what I actually want to be doing in the game, which is discovering all the content you want to show me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's always, and we've talked about this, it's always felt like to me, if you were watching a movie and then 30 minutes into the movie it goes, well, before you can watch the next 30 minutes of the movie, you need to take a quiz about the subtext of what the first 30 minutes of the movie was about. And until you can pass this quiz, we're not going to let you watch the next 30 minutes of the movie. And that just always is just seems
Mm-hmm.
like a ridiculous thing for me in a video game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Quizzes aren't fun, and yeah, there's no point. Yeah, you don't
yeah,
want to.
so
You don't want to feel like you're wasting your time,
yeah, right.
especially if your motivation is to see content and see more stuff. Um, yeah, I feel like your approach, especially yeah, with these kind of games, like I can't, it's much more worth it just to find ways to just keep advancing the story and playing it linear, in a linear fashion and see what you can find, see what the developers and artists intended you to see if you kept
Mm-hmm.
playing it.
Yeah. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I know that if I were ever just to build a game for myself from the ground up, I suspect that most traditional gamers would fault it for being too easy. But
Yeah.
I just would much rather see. I would much rather for players to see all of the hard work I put into everything. Right? Like that
Yeah.
just seems like the better. Why would I make content that is going to be difficulty gated for some players? That doesn't make any sense to me. So, in terms of like difficulty balance, I'd always balance on the easier side of things than the harder side of things.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably a discussion for another time. But then
Yeah.
the other side of it though is if the game's too easy, then you get bored. You know what I mean? And then
Sure.
then
Yeah.
is the content strong enough for you to keep playing and prevent the boredom part? I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
I don't know what
Exactly. I mean,
it's that fine line,
it
right?
is a fine line, and that's what like they always say, right? Like the last 20% of game development is 80% of development.
Yeah.
It's the little pieces, and again, yeah, everything that I'm saying is my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like
Sure. Sure.
people, millions upon millions of people love super hard games, and that's great. They should love super hard games. I would never tell them they're wrong for loving super hard games. I think they're insane, but that's my opinion, right? Like,
Hmm.
just because I think they're insane for liking those hard games doesn't make them wrong. It just makes them insane,
Yeah.
um
Sure. Sure.
um but but it's just not what I'm looking for, and I think that it's okay. I don't, it doesn't bother me that uh uh like Elden Ring is too hard for me, right? It's like
Mhm.
it wears its difficulty on its sleeve, and I appreciate that, because it's like, okay, well, this is a game I don't need to approach because I know that I wouldn't enjoy it. And that's okay. Like, not every game needs to appeal to every player.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
um, but I do think that at least with Resident Evil 7, they do walk a good line. Like I said, like even on the easy difficulty level, I died like 10 times. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like, it wasn't an easy game for me by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But easy was like the right difficulty for me. And so they did a good job of balancing the expectations of the player for the different difficulty levels.
So where are you? Sorry, I didn't catch this part. So you're still on 7, or did you beat it and now you're gonna move on to 8? Like, where are
I'm
you at with?
I'm like an hour away from finishing off the last of the DLC, and then by that point, I suspect Monster Hunter Stories will be out, and I'm
Okay,
probably just gonna play Monster Hunter Stories 3 for the time
man.
being.
So then that means, so even though you have Resident Evil 9, everybody's talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to move on to Master Hunter Stories. But
Yeah. Well, I like
yeah,
Monster Hunter more than Resident Evil.
yeah,
Um. So and
yeah, that makes sense. And you were a big fan of the others. I mean,
oh
you
yeah,
you kind of, I mean, you again, you got me into Monster Hunter Rise, and this was a terrific game. So I know you've always spoken favorably about the stories games as well, right? So,
Monster Hunter Stories
uh,
always felt to me like Pokemon plateaued and stopped doing
mhm,
anything interesting again, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, Pokemon is still one of the most recognizable and beloved brands in the world. And I don't have anything personally against the brand, but I felt that the games have gotten pretty stale.
mhm,
Um, and they're not doing anything interesting anymore. It's always the same story. All the starter monsters are always leaf,
some sort of,
grass type, fire type, water type.
mhm, yeah,
Even with the announce of the new one, the starters are still grass type, fire type, water type. And I'm
yeah,
like, does it really
mhm,
need to be that though? Um, and I just honestly just got bored with what it had on offer. The same
mhm,
as what I got bored with Assassin's Creed and games like that, where it's functionally the exact same game with a few minor tweaks around the edges and a new coat of paint, right?
yeah, mhm,
Um, what I felt like to me is Monster Hunter took everything that I liked about Pokemon and then added a little bit of verve to it, a little bit of a little zest, right? Like gave it a bit of a glow up. Um, all the core stuff is there, collecting the monsters, raising the monsters, giving them new moves, right? In its own variety of stuff, but they mix up the formula in interesting ways where it's just like, oh, okay, this is a new interesting way to approach this rather than watching or playing fundamentally the exact same game with different graphics over and over again. They took mechanics from the original Monster Hunter, they took mechanics from other JRPGs,
mhm,
and then stewed them all up together and created something new. I mean, that's one of my big loves is when a game can take a bunch of things that I know and I'm familiar with and mix them together and tell
yeah,
a new story or create a new game that feels new, even though all of the component parts. I'm a big proponent of the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, right? Like
mhm,
that is for me the apex of design is the sum of the parts is greater than the whole.
mhm,
And I think for me Monster Hunter Stories really does that. It brings in a lot of things from a lot of different games and a lot of different genres, and it makes something that is much better than the individual parts on its own, right?
mhm,
So
mhm,
yeah, I've loved Monster Hunter Stories since the very first game when it was out on the 3DS, when it was like almost like a sleeper launch from Capcom. They weren't sure if anybody in the States would want to play. At the time that the first game came out, it was a Monster Hunter was still a pretty niche brand in the United States, niche brand in the United States,
mhm,
and it was growing. But like releasing a spin-off game that was a turn-based RPG where you didn't actually hunt monsters and all of the graphics were very anime or not like not adult anime, like anime intended for kids. like
Hmm.
Saturday morning cartoons, I think is the analog that I'd be looking for.
Hmm.
They sort of like, well, we don't even know if this is going to sell, so we're just going to kind of shadow release this. And I always thought like, I really love this game. I bet they're never going to release another one. And then obviously,
Yeah.
by the time Monster Hunter Stories had come out, like Monster Hunter had become one of Capcom's premier brands, and so the story changed after that. But yeah, I mean, I've always dug Monster Hunter Stories, that whole offshoot of the brand.
This is more of a macro perspective, macro comment, but we often talk about or we're kind of general these days. I think we're a little more pessimistic about games, and as in the industry, it feels like it sometimes. But there's some optimism in there. Nintendo being, in their villain mode or their heel turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta say, Capcom has been is a paragon. You know what I mean? Like it can't do any wrong. Like that company's been doing nothing but really cool stuff, and they
Yeah.
put their games on sale so you can pick them up, and they put their stuff on in packs or like just what you said was Resident Evil. You bought all three of them for like a decent
Mm-hmm.
price, and they
Mm-hmm.
like if there's for the villainy that Nintendo is, Capcom is definitely the paladin of the gaming world to me, at least in
Yeah.
my opinion. I
I
think
mean,
they've been nothing but good.
they release a ton of overpriced cosmetics for the games, but
Yeah,
they're cosmetics though,
yeah,
right? Like,
yep, yeah,
it doesn't really matter what your character's hairstyle looks like. The game is unaffected,
hmm,
right? And so
yeah,
their all of their cosmetic stuff is wildly overpriced, and I can't imagine why
hmm,
anybody would
sure,
ever spend any money on it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
none of it is fundamental to the game, right? And
hmm,
like the core experience is always available for you for the initial price as a general
yeah,
rule.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I mean, Capcom is from the days of Mega Man, right?
yeah.
Um,
They've always been consistently, for the most part, good. I mean, they make stinkers like
oh,
Resident Evil 6,
of
6 was a
course,
stinker,
of
for
course.
example. But you can't fault any game company is going to make a stinker.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just
On the
feel like
merits,
they
though,
always,
yeah, Capcom
yeah,
is one of my favorite developer slash publishers.
yeah. I mean, Street Fighter 6, right? You were
I'm
you
still a
were
huge fan of
completely
it.
impressed
Loved
with
it.
that game
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah. Five was a miss for
Um,
me, but I really love
mhm.
six.
Yeah, and I think you're not alone. I think a lot of people think 5 is a stinker of the batch,
Hmm.
of those. So yeah, it's just interesting. So I guess we got to give flowers to when a corporation does do good,
Yeah,
it's worth mentioning.
agreed, agreed.
It's cool
And
as a fanboy to at least appreciate from afar.
yeah, for sure.
Oh, I think we're in a good spot to stop.
All
But
right.
for tonight's stream, if you look here, let me zoom in. We do got basic celebratory stuff going on. Yay!
Nice, nice. Oh, very
So
cool. Yeah.
yeah, so we're good for tonight for this scene.
Excellent,
I mean, the only
excellent.
thing really left to do with the scene is put the background and then put tinsel in over here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that sketch
Mm-hmm.
is there for. But yeah, we kind of made a lot of progress with this scene tonight, and I will hit save because of the nature of
Yeah, 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 yeah.
technology. But yeah, I
All right.
think we're in good
Well,
shot, good shape
then
here.
we'll call it there. If you head on over to anybody who's watching this, head on over to Calamity Jane Rocks. We've got a Patreon. Please subscribe. Help us make this cartoon a reality. We're also on all the socials. On Instagram, you can find us at Calamity Jane Salamander. On Facebook and YouTube and the others, just search for Calamity Jane Adventure Hour, and you'll get what you need there. We will not be here next week, I believe.
Yeah, I'll be
Um,
I'll be out of town, but
mm-hmm. But I believe the week after next we should be around.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
right back
yeah,
on.
we'll be back, and then yeah, so we're gonna be off and on for the next few weeks because like off next week, on the week after, off the week after that because I'll
Mhm,
be in Boston. So,
mhm.
um, but yeah, so but we won't be back next week, but we will be back in 2 weeks. So join us then. Until then, stay safe out there, everybody, and have a good night. Good night.
Good night.